Hi, it's Jared from Strongroots Farm. Welcome back to the farm. Today we're going to be talking farm finances, meaning I'm going to tell you how much we actually made on our farm this year. Now it's only mid-November, but we just sold the last of our beef for the year. All of our sales are in. All of our expenses are out. There may be a little bit here and there come in if I need something small or something breaks, but for the most part, we know exactly how much money this farm made this year. Now, usually it's not a good idea to release your personal finances because it can bring about a lot of scrutiny. But our farm, our channel is all about helping people getting started into this lifestyle. And with that, we are 100% truthful. We try to show both sides and give you the unadulterated truth when it comes to what you're about to get into or ways to improve your small farm or homestead. So with that today, I'm going to release my actual finances. Hopefully there's some grace from my viewers, but we're going to talk about it all. Stick around. We're also going to talk about some different things that are economically different with a farm than a standard business, how these numbers play and how tax laws are a little bit different than you may be used to. Stick around. I'll take you through it all. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. A little disclaimer at the beginning. One, we record every penny of income. So for instance, somebody comes up to our store, they buy 2 pounds of bacon, they hand me a $20 bill in cash, we put an invoice in for it, we record it. So our income, our finances, our P&L is to the penny, and we are very accurate about that. We declare everything to Uncle Sam. I don't care what you do. I'm not judging. I just want you to know that's what we have chosen to do on our farm, and that is where all of these numbers come from. But throughout this video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how income on a farm is different from a traditional business. And if you're not a farmer or you haven't been in this industry, I'll present some situations to you that you may think are wrong. So please give me grace in that. This is how we run our farm, as honest as we can, and there is some give and take in this industry. You'll understand as I go through some of these things, whether you agree with it politically or with the tax law or whatever, we hire our taxes to be done so that they're done legitimately, and we keep track of everything so we are within the law and do above and beyond what some people might choose to do. That's all on you. Just wanted to be upfront with you about this and these numbers that are about to show. All right, without further ado, this year on our farm, 30 acres, we butchered 15 steers, we butchered 12 pigs. We sold 3 pigs live, right to a farm, right to a customer, and we sold 27 head of cattle live weight. They walked off our farm. Some were purchased in this year and then resold. Some were calves that were born. However it went. But that's what we sold, and our total profit for the year, dollars that will be on our P&L, was $5,489. In that dollar amount, it will not be the exact number that we show Uncle Sam. So for instance, there's no labor in that. So if you are running a traditional P&L, it would have labor in it. I do not declare a check. So I don't take out of the farm as a check for my labor, which is about 1,000 hours this year between me and my kids. That's how much we put in for 0 labor. The other thing is that it's not the number we show to Uncle Sam. It'll be shown, but it's not the total number because there is mortgage interest. We do have a small portion of mortgage. There is insurance for the whole farm, including our house, and our tax person. You know, there's a way to do a percentage of that insurance that says this much insurance was due to the farm and this was due to your house. You don't get to write off what comes from the house. Same thing for a few other bills that are not in our P&L that then come off the top of our income for the year. So that number will not be exactly what we show, but that's what our P&L says today. So I said there's going to be some things that are different on a farm. So for instance, cattle. If you buy an asset or you buy a piece of equipment for a normal business, you get to write it off that year, the year that you purchased it, or you can depreciate it out or amortize it out over certain years, however the taxes work. Not a tax CPA. We hire that done, obviously. But cattle are a little different in the state of Ohio, and it may be like this in your state. If I purchase a cow or a calf, I cannot write the value of that expense off when I purchase it. I write off the cow or the calf purchase when we sell or butcher that animal. So for instance, the calves that we butchered this past week, they were purchased 2 years ago. So for 2 years, I held that asset, that expense, and then I get to declare it as an expense in the year that we sold the meat or sold the live animal. That's a little bit different, but I want you to be aware of that. The other thing that's not in that $5,400 is assets that we added to the farm as a zero debt asset, like that baler back there. I bought that baler this year. I paid cash for it, which we try to do with most of our stuff. I am declaring the piece of equipment as an expense, all of the value of it in this year. There is a method of practice for whatever it costs, if it's financed versus buying it outright, how long you can amortize or depreciate that off in your taxes. I don't know all those laws, but we're taking that total value. So the $5,400, also, I gained a baler. It is here. When I sell it, it will become income back into the farm. But this year, that $5,400 isn't 100% true of what we made because I added a new $5,000 baler. I also added a new $5,000 bale wrapper. Tool-wise in my shop, I got a few new tools, some clamps, some different things that we acquired throughout the year, maybe $500 worth. Bought a new table saw this year, bought a new router this year. Farm paid for that. That is a tool that we will use on the farm, but it's kind of in the middle there, which we'll talk about here in a second. But we bought some tools. Those are assets that were added to the farm that were above and beyond that $5,400. This truck, it's our farm truck. A farm truck in Ohio cannot be written off on a farm, but you can write off fuel or mileage. But this truck has a new bedside because a deer ran into it while it was hooked to this cattle trailer hauling cattle. So it was doing farm work when it was damaged and it had to be paid to get fixed. So $1,600 to fix this truck came out of the farm this year. And then there's some other things that's really hard to equate. So I want you to think about something small, like this can of WD-40. The farm paid for this WD-40. But if my wife has a squeaky door in her house and I come out and I get the farm's WD-40 and I put 2 squirts on the hinge and make it stop squeaking, technically the farm paid to have the farmhouse door not squeak. Do I have to then transfer the half a cent worth of WD-40 from the farm account to my personal account? No, I don't do that. So there are some benefits that the household gets from the farm, little things like this, that can add up as part of an income or a benefit to the family over time. Another instance, we rarely buy small boxes of screws. When I buy a thing of screws, I buy the 10-pound bucket, right? Because that's how you save the most amount of money. These were special screws and I didn't want to hold up a 10-pound bucket of screws. So we buy a bucket of screws to do a project on the farm. But when I build a shelf for my wife in the house, I go upstairs to the inventory of items on the farm and I get wood and I get screws and I build that shelf. Now, if I was going to do an addition on the house, that would not come from the farm. But if the house uses 20 screws from the farm, I don't count out those as 0.001 cent per screw or whatever it would cost and change that money. So you understand it's hard. There are some benefits of a farm when it comes to money and taxes, and things go back and forth. The way I look at it, because we are very big about rendering to Caesar what is Caesar's. We pay our taxes. Whether we agree with politicians or how they use it, I don't ever argue about that. I don't care. I just pay what the tax person tells me to pay. But there's these things that are middle ground that are benefits from the farm, like this shop. The farm paid for this shop. I changed my wife's oil in this shop for her personal vehicle, our minivan. But the farm doesn't charge her for the oil change because it's my labor. The farm doesn't charge her for the lights and the use of the shop. It's just a benefit of the farmer. To me, it's part of the farm because I'm the farmer. So the farm has to pay a little bit of that house that houses the farmer that runs the farm. Tax-wise, I've discussed this with my tax person. She's like, nobody cares about the 12 cents worth of screws that the farm actually ended up at the house. It's not ran like a standard business. The analogy that my tax lady gave to me is this kind of equates to you run a business with a lot of employees and your employee steals a few bolts out of the bolt bin. It happens, or maybe you allow it. Maybe they're allowed, hey, they got something at home to fix. Yes, we buy 30,000 bolts a month. Take 3 bolts and fix what you need at home on your kid's bike. That happens in big business all the time. There's things that are thrown away that employees take, or employees help themselves perhaps, or borrow a tool from work. Same situation here. But there is one big benefit that my family gained this year from the farm that is not within that $5,400, and that is we have a farm store full of meat. When my personal family needs meat, we just kind of come out to the store and get meat. It doesn't get recorded, we eat it. The animal dies, so it was a deduction from the farm. And in a year, we probably eat an entire beef and 1 to 2 hogs. So that's probably around $6,000 worth of meat that if I could have sold it out of my store, but my family just eats it. The farmer gets fed. Now there are a few things that we have to keep separate on our farm, like electricity and water. So 100% of the electricity and the water for the farm is wrote off on the farm because it's used to make agricultural products. But the farm, if I can get my finger to work right here, has its own meter. We have 2 separate meters. There's a meter for the house and a meter for the farm. Same thing with the water. We have a water meter for the house and a water meter for the farm. They're separate. So when we use water, it gets wrote off 100%. Same thing with fuel and everything else we use. Everything we do on the farm, my boots, because I wear them on the farm, get wrote off on the farm. These hoodies, they're clothing the farmer, but they're used as a tool, a clothing item on the farm, and their advertisement for the farm, so we write them off on the farm. So that dilemma of what to write down and what's real and what's not, and how the money works out on a farm and doing all that, you have to work that out within yourself and your tax person. But that's the truth of how the farm works for us. I'm giving you my data there. Hope that helps you with what we can make. Now let's talk about how this came about. What did we do to earn money and what were our major expenses? I think that'll help you along the way. So realistically, that $5,400 that we showed that we made this year is higher because we have these assets that we gained. But the tax number that will show that we will submit on our tax forms, we will pay tax on less than that because 2 years ago, I put $35,000 in barns that we depreciated out, that each year for 5 years, a portion of that comes out. 5 years ago, I bought a brand new tractor, and this is the last year I'll be able to deduct portion of that brand new tractor that we paid for because we split it up for 5 years. Fencing, feeders, things like that. So they go down. But our major expenses for the year come in 2 or 3 main columns. So our largest columns is feed and water for the animals, which covers the little bit of grain that we buy for the pigs and the chickens. And we have that 1 calf that we're feeding grain and hay. Last year we spent about $8,500 on hay, which was a pretty big check for us as far as feed goes. So we spend quite a bit every year, around 15 grand total for the water. I think that covers the water and the electric. We put that utilities under feed, and then the feed itself and the hay, and then any hay equipment. So like the string for our baler, the wrap, all that stuff goes in the feed column. And then anything we would buy feed equipment wise. So a bunk feeder, if we would have had to buy one of those, which we didn't. I think we bought a pig feeder this year. We tore one up. Some pig bowls we bought this year. I bought a new waterer for the chickens. All that goes into feed, and that's our largest column. The next column down that's pretty big for us every year is equipment maintenance and fuel. So we put that in the same column. So oil filters that are 80 bucks a filter for that tractor that we change every year, that goes in that column. It costs money. The oil filters, all the maintenance. Popped a tire this year, needed a new tire. That was equipment maintenance. The diesel fuel to run all the tractors, all the grease, all the other things that go with maintaining equipment. That was a pretty big cost for us. That includes stuff like trailers, all of these things, just the maintenance on it. It was around $2,000 this year, I think. So it took quite a bit. Now we have quite a bit of equipment. There's 3 tractors. We have all the hay equipment. So there's lots of maintenance to be done. I bought new blades for the bush hog this year. Usually we sharpen those, but I went ahead and bought a new set. They were pretty beat up. So that goes into equipment maintenance. Now it's not as large this year for us on our taxes, but traditionally we typically have a big piece of that pie that we call structural improvements, fence, stuff like that, whatever the title is that she uses there. And so that covers every time we build new fence, we buy the fencing material, fencing tools, all that kind of stuff would go there. We build a new building, we build a new manure holding pen, whatever we have, it all goes to that. The gravel for this lot all went into that. And so traditionally, that's a pretty big one. Now, 2 years ago, we spent 35 grand just on the building. I think we spent about 50 grand that year in farm improvements as far as fence and buildings. But this year, it was only $2,000 to $3,000 perhaps. I think we bought a new gate this year. And I put all my temporary stakes in that. I have to buy, 30 or 40 of those every year. They break, they go bad. And so there's all those costs, all the wire, all of the poly wire that we use, the reels, all the things you see in my videos, that all goes in that column. And then of course, the last major column is the actual purchases of the animals. So if I bought a cow, I get to write it back off when I sell it, but there's a big line item for livestock purchases. We buy all our piglets, we bought some chickens, some meat birds, we buy all of our calves or some of our calves that come that we didn't calve on the farm here. And so that is a big piece of the pie when you look at expenses, but ultimately it's always higher when we sell them. So that's where our major income comes from. But as far as livestock purchases, that usually ends up being a large portion of the pie as well. This year, we didn't have to buy as much livestock. We sold a lot more livestock than we purchased this year per se. So it outweighed itself there. But we probably spent $40,000 this year in livestock purchases total, and our total sales were over $80,000 in livestock sales. So that's where our income majorly comes from. Let's talk about the income. So we talked about livestock sales. That's live animals that leave the farm, whether it's to a stockyard or sale barn. I didn't sell any that way this year, but every time we sell, whether it's through marketplace or postings or word of mouth, we sell animals. If they leave livestock as a walking animal, they get sold as a livestock sale. We also sell the meat. So if we take it to the butcher, we can write off the fuel and the hauling, we can write off the butcher fee, but we sell the meat. So everything meat-wise that we sell comes into that income portion as sold meats. And so we separate those out as far as livestock and meat sales in 2 different income columns, but that's our 2 major incomes. Now we do have a few other smaller ones. We have hay. If I would decide to sell some hay. Now, traditionally in years past, we've always had to buy more than we needed. So we've never had that option. But this year we had some hay sales. I sold some hay. I also have more hay next year that I will be able to sell because I seeded 25 extra acres this year that we're going to be able to do. So next year we have planned for our hay sales to go up. That would be another one. And then the 4th one, which always is kind of in the middle ground, it's a little higher every year, we call farm services. Now, farm services is kind of a goofy one. I do a little bit of consulting. So if I go to a farm and I spend a few hours with them and they pay me a couple $100 and I'm trying to help them get started, that's a consulting fee. I put that down as income for the farm as farm services. And then there's some stuff that kind of falls outside that maybe some people would disagree with. For instance, if I use my farm equipment to go put in a culvert for a guy, let's just say, and that's an excavating job. I don't have an excavating business, so I do that underneath the farm as farm services. One major farm service for us is YouTube. Every bit of money that I make from this channel and from my Amazon affiliate links, which is all very small, it goes under farm services because I'm making the YouTube money from the farm. So we put it as income to the farm. So that's farm services. This is really a wide range. When I talk to other farmers, they use this for crazy things. We try to make it stick to only farm stuff or where I use farm equipment. So if I bail for somebody else or do something like that, but we call that farm services and it's shown as income from our farm. Well, there you have it. That's how we got our income, what our major expenses are, some differences in an agricultural farm, economics page, P&L wise, profit and loss statement, than you might see in a regular business. So hopefully that helps you to kind of understand. Those laws change all the time. It's ridiculous. We are very detailed about writing down everything. We have a receipt and proof for everything. I've never been audited, but I've always been anal about my paperwork and my computer system. We buy a computer system, Waze, I think it's called, or Wave. I used to use QuickBooks, but I didn't like how it was set up, so we switched. But we track everything, mainly because I want to know what's working and what's not. The 80-20 rule is that 80% of your profit comes from 20% of your sales, and that typically holds true. So we have about 20% of the things that we do that produces most of our income. It's mostly cattle. The other thing I think you'll find about farm assets, so equipment that you buy, in a traditional business or family, things depreciate fairly quickly. Now, our farm truck here is going to depreciate as the same as your truck. If you bought a truck and you don't have a farm, trucks don't depreciate very much. But farm equipment itself doesn't depreciate a lot. So that rake, that was $2,500. 10 years from now, it's going to be worth $2,200. It doesn't depreciate. Tractors are going up. So you buy a tractor and you keep it for 10 years and put 1,500 hours on it. The value in 10 years may be more than what you paid for it brand new. Now that's kind of rare, but it's definitely more than you would owe on it. You get value out of farm equipment a little longer than other things. They kind of hold their value like guns. Of course, that all depends how you take care of it and how you treat it and how well it's maintained over time, if it holds that value. Like, don't be like me and leave your stuff out in the weather like this, which all this stuff will be in that barn within the next week and a half. So we got to finish cleaning the pig pen and all my equipment gets put away. Some of this stuff gets set out a little bit over time, but if you take care of your stuff, it holds its value better in this industry than in some. All right, well, I hope that video helped you to kind of understand, one, the truth about what we made here. You're watching my channel, or maybe this is your first video, subscribe and come along, but knowing what we make. $5.40 an hour is what I'm gonna be showing. $5,400 for 1,000 hours of labor. That's about what it came out to be. There are farmers, though, that will show a loss every year. One, because stuff's expensive, but two, that's kind of how the farming goes. Well, why would anybody do it? I've had tax guys ask me this that know nothing about farming. Why would anybody farm when all these farmers show a loss every year? Well, it's because of the other side benefits that we talked about. The tools, the stuff that we have, the equipment, the food, the different things that we get from it kind of add up that don't always get shown depending on how honest the farmer is. So you buy a piece of equipment and you sell it for cash. If you're not an honest guy, or you decide what you want to do, I'm not judging, but if the guy wouldn't show that as a sale, that wouldn't be shown in there, and so you would then declare a loss. Some farmers have losses every year because this is the nature of farming, but some people, because of the tax laws and the way farming goes, they use it to their benefit and show a loss every year. But there are these benefits that you have to add on top of the income. So for me, I get to write off my property taxes and write off my insurance and write off a lot of other things. Whereas if I just had a piece of land just for us to roam on, I wouldn't be able to write that off. So agricultural is helping me in that manner. And my taxes are cheaper because we use it for agriculture versus if it was just a piece of land for my kids to ride go-karts on. I will tell you, I'm very good with money. I pay attention to money. I have my good investments, but I'm not very good about teaching about it, and I definitely don't know all the laws. That's why I hire an accountant. I recommend you do the same. I don't know the laws in every state or every country, so things are different everywhere. So please, I'll try to help you if you ask and you comment down below or you send me an email, but I don't know everything about this. And if you're critical, like farmers get too much to write off, I'm just following the rules. So that's the way it goes. And if you think that this is stupid of me to make $5,400 for 1,000 hours, I agree with you at points. So it's frustrating. It's frustrating how little we make. And then, you know, the media and different things say hamburger's too high. You know, $8 to feed a family of 4 for dinner is too much money. And I think that's ridiculous. I think it should even be higher. I think beef prices in grocery stores and everywhere should realistically cost more than they do. Quit eating Cheetos that are cheap food, buy real food, and it'll really cost you a little bit more to feed your family accurately. But we're not getting rich here farming. Everybody knows that. Now you know the truth of what's coming from our farm, and hopefully it either discourages you enough to not do it, and you probably would have quit anyways or would have struggled with it, or hopefully it encourages you that it can be done if you are struggling. But either way, I'm giving you the truth. Continue to make videos. We continue to do things. If you've got something that you want to do, I've got a comment from last week about a dairy cow. Don't know a lot about that, but I'm going to talk about that. And I have somebody I'm going to go see to make a video about that. So if you got an idea or a question or something, we'll make a video for you. Just let us know. Until next time, have a good one.